Hi guys, welcome to Stardust Astrology and your Vedic astrological forecast for April 2017. I hope this video finds you well. There are four major influences for this April. First of all, Venus is retrograde at the moment, and it will be till the 15th of April when it is turning direct, and we're all gonna feel this shift. Then the second one is new moon conjunct this Venus retrograde, which is happening on March the 28th. And since it falls in the end of the month, it is going to mark a new cycle or new developments which will be happening in April. The third influence is Saturn retrograde in Sagittarius. Saturn is turning retrograde on the 7th of April, and I'm going to make a separate video on this. And the fourth influence is Mercury retrograde, which is happening on the 10th of April in the sign of Aries. And this Mercury retrograde coincides with the full moon in Virgo, so I'm going to make a separate video on this as well, because it's gonna be a big one, because the full moon in Virgo is ruled by Mercury, right? And Mercury is turning retrograde, so there will be some retracing there. Now we are still in this rare period of Venus retrograde, which is giving us a different perspective on our relationships, desires, pleasures, and wealth. And the retrograde lasts till the 15th of April, and I will not go into detail of that here because I did a detailed video on this topic. I'm putting the link for the video below, and I suggest you go watch that because April will be marked by a new moon which is conjunct this retrograde Venus, so you will probably want to have an understanding of what it means. Now, as I said, the new moon conjunct Venus retrograde is happening on the 28th of March, and its cycle of development is 4 weeks until the next new moon. And it is especially strong in the first 2 weeks after the day of the new moon, meaning this is going to mark the month of April. And I'm going to focus this forecast on that because every new moon is a new beginning, a new cycle, and this one happens in the house where Pisces is in your chart. You need to count where Pisces falls in your chart from the ascendant and then from your moon sign, and listen to both forecasts. This new beginning is falling in UttaraBhadrapada nakshatra. Nakshatras are the 27 constellations behind the 12 zodiac signs, which give us more specific and detailed meanings of planets which are placed there. And when the new beginning falls in UttaraBhadrapada nakshatra, it will bring into our lives the energies and the archetypes of this nakshatra in the house where Pisces falls in your chart. This nakshatra is ruled by Saturn, so any new beginnings in April will have to serve the agenda of Saturn, who is now in Sagittarius in Mula. So also look at the house where Sagittarius is in your chart. Now, UttaraBhadrapada nakshatra is attuned to making great guidance systems, to building systems in large networks. Why? Because it falls in Pisces, and Pisces is ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter has to do with the big picture and big stuff, right? And with guidance, since Jupiter is a guru, a guide. And it is ruled by Saturn, and Saturn is all about systems and networks. So when we mix these two influences together, and you can test this, UttaraBhadrapada really has this power to make large network systems or guidance systems, and this can be observed at any level. For example, in business, you will see this quite literally, while, for example, emotionally, UttaraBhadrapada needs structure and order in their emotional life. This new moon falls in the fourth pada of UttaraBhadrapada nakshatra, which is Scorpio Navamsha, meaning we can all expect changes with symbolism of this nakshatra, since Scorpio, as you probably know, rules deep or dramatic changes. And if you have any planets in UttaraBhadrapada nakshatra pada 4, these planets will also be triggered both in your D1 chart but also in your Navamsha chart. Also, if you have any planets, anytime a new moon triggers a planet, see which house or houses this planet rules, and then you can also listen to the forecast for that house, because it will be more prominent than the house where it is happening. Now, all Saturn-ruled nakshatras are structured, organized, and systematic, and this one is capable of developing complex ideas, since it falls in the sign ruled by Jupiter, but it's also capable of moving both oneself and others towards a specific goal, Saturnian way, meaning step by step in organized fashion. The deity who rules UttaraBhadrapada is called Ahirpudya. I hope I'm pronouncing this well, since this is an Indian word. And this deity is actually represented by a serpent or a dragon, who is lying at the bottom of a very deep sea and guarding his hoard of jewels. In practical life, we can see this archetype when UttaraBhadrapada is triggered by wanting to build some kind of very strong foundation which will bring us security and bases, like a fortress which has storage rooms, where we keep our metaphorical jewels, things which are important to us to ensure survival. The things that we collect and organize and protect in UttaraBhadrapada can be material things, but they can also have to do with knowledge or even human relationships and social systems. UttaraBhadrapada is often predisposed to take on various social leadership responsibilities. It is also a very self-protective nakshatra, but in a kind of passive way. So rather than attacking, when this energy is triggered, we engage in resistance, resisting anything that we may perceive as attack. And UttaraBhadrapada has this strong need for privacy and seclusion, and they are very, very sensitive to anything that feels invasive or protruding to them. This is when they will provide resistance to these outer influences. So, every nakshatra is a very complex archetypal energy, and we can derive so many stories from each and every one of them, but each and every one of them has this one essential core energy, out of which, like branches, different symbolisms and stories and events evolve, but the core is always there. And if I would have to describe the essential energy of UttaraBhadrapada in, let's say, one sentence, it would be that this is the energy that we use to collect a bunch of something which may be unorderly or disorganized, but the UttaraBhadrapada has the power to see the underlying basic structure in an apparent chaos of that thing, then to bring it in order, build a system out of it, and preserve it. And from that process, UttaraBhadrapada feels grounded and secured. That's the core. And from that core, we can derive a million interpretations for any area of life or event with this archetype. Now, this new moon is conjunct Venus retrograde, and Venus retrograde is also in UttaraBhadrapada. And when a new moon is conjunct Venus, it starts the kind of monthly cycle, which is kind of loving, caring, gentle, kind, really affectionate in nature. And the focus of this cycle will be on loving and harmonious relationships, popularity, making friends, social life, also about our looks, pleasures, shopping, sexual attractiveness, taking care of other people, empathy, compassion, all depending on where in your chart it falls, and also which houses Venus rules in your chart. Now, all these things I mentioned here just sound like this moon conjunct Venus is all about rainbows and unicorns, and it really does wish it could be all about rainbows and unicorns, but this is not an easy aspect at all, moon conjunct Venus. Basically, it means that we will all feel this energy of our peace of mind strongly depending on other people and relationship with them, on how well we are accepted, how attractive we are, how rich our closet is, how full our pockets are, how easy and enjoyable our life is, and so on. And in order to be at peace, moon conjunct Venus needs all these Venusian things. Moon is what we need. And at the same time, this is such a soft energy that it cannot deal with unpleasantness and conflict. So it will go in roundabout ways trying to get all those Venusian things that it feels it needs. Since this is happening in UttaraBhadrapada, we will all feel we need to collect as many things or people or as much knowledge or as much information or whatever it signifies in your chart, and do it in a very charming roundabout way, and then put it in order and protect it also in a very charming and roundabout way in order to feel safe and secure in this new cycle. And all of this is going to serve the purpose of Saturn and Sagittarius in Mula because he rules this new cycle. So we also have to see what his agenda in your chart is at the moment. Now we have to bear in mind that Venus is retrograde and just transiting from her Hesperus phase to Lucifer phase. Venus retrograde has phases. In Hesperus phase, this is before she conjuncts Sun, in her retrograde motion towards the sun, we feel more withdrawn and pure in a kind of virginal way, shy when it comes to expressing love. We were probably all reflecting upon our past lovers and idealizing them during this cycle and so on. You have more info on the cycles of Venus retrograde in my Venus retrograde video, and the link is below. Now this Venus during this new moon is at 9 degrees Pisces, while the new moon is at 13 degrees Pisces, meaning Venus has passed the conjunction with Sun by the time of this new moon and is becoming Lucifer. Lucifer here means the light bringer, the one who brings the light. And in this phase, we are all prone to jumping into relationships. We are yearning for more love, more sex, more pleasure, more money, more luxury, more idealized peace and relationships and so on. And people are generally more horny in this period. This is a period which indicates the potential for falling head over heels for someone who is not necessarily good for you. If you meet any new people during this period, try not to jump into their beds straight away because the possibility of becoming bonded to someone who's not good for you is enormous now. Do you know what oxytocin is? This is that irrational bonding hormone which enables, for example, women to give childbirth. Nobody sane would go through childbirth unless we are under loads of oxytocin, right? So this irrational bonding hormone will be running wild, especially for you ladies during this period. So any new Mr. Perfect you meet, date them. Yeah, sure, go date them, but try to delay sex for after the 15th of April if you want to avoid becoming obsessed with them, and after that exhausting tons of your energy into trying to make a secure emotional foundation in UttaraBhadrapada manner with someone who's a mess. But you can see the underlying potential for order in them. Now, this is a general theme for all of us. Now, let's go sign by sign. Ascendant sign will show what you're prone to get yourself into voluntarily and very often by your own initiative, and the moon sign will show influences coming towards you without you initiating them or even asking for them. So I'll start from Aries. If your ascendant or moon sign is in Aries, April will bring new developments in your 12th house, which will include the lord of your 2nd and 7th houses, which is Venus. Saturn, the ruler of this new cycle, is in your 9th house. Another very strong influence for you guys is Mars, who is your ruling planet and who is in your 1st house throughout April. You will have a lot of energy and you will be very competitive about everything, mostly this month. Plus, your logical mind will be very strong and you will want to get things done fast. On the other hand, a new moon in the 12th house brings the focus on endings and activities which are more of a passive nature or happening behind the scenes. So it is possible with this new moon that you will enter a period of preparation for a new project, for example, which is going to start big way in May, let's say. 12th house also rules faraway places, so you may travel, especially with your spouse and family, since Venus rules the houses of spouse and family for you guys. Or, for example, for business, because Venus rules the houses for money and business for you guys. With the new moon in the 12th house, you may feel tired and need to keep the balance between the strong Mars energy in the 1st house and having plenty of rest in the 12th house. Now, this may also be the case if your sun is in Aries, not only moon or ascendant, but people with sun in Aries may be especially feeling tired and withdrawn now, because for all of us, 1 month before our birthday is the time period where the sign behind our sun sign is activated, and when generally your immune system is the lowest during the year. So pay attention to that. And this is a good time for some spiritual practice, which requires engaging your body or focusing the mind because of the strong Mars in the 1st house. Like, for example, yoga. If your life path at the moment includes any kind of research, this is the time to collect information which may be unorderly and disorganized, then recognize the basic structure of these information, bring them into some kind of order and preserve them. This may be something as simple as sorting your music collection or your clothes, and giving away anything that you do not need, because it's together with your 2nd house lord, which rules any kind of possessions that you may have. And generally, when 12th house is triggered, it is great for giving away whatever you do not want to carry over to your next 12-month cycle, which is going to start with the new moon in Aries, which is going to happen at the end of April. This can also manifest as a sudden expense or some other kind of personal sacrifice, because this is what 12th house rules, giving away your energy without getting anything in return, which we tend to call sacrifice. And expenses also come here because money is a form of very solid energy. You give it away and you don't get anything in return. It's an expense. And this may be tied to your family or spouse, since Venus rules these houses for you. Now, with this Venus retrograde conjuncting new moon here, for some Aries, this will be the time of reconciling with an ex. probably starting it as a secret relationship because of the 12th house influence. And it doesn't have to be an ex. It is totally possible that this is a new person. Anyhow, it will have some element of clandestine or faded here, the feeling of connection which is beyond physical. If this is an ex, the focus will probably be on making something structured and orderly out of a messy situation with them and laying some solid ground for the future of your relationship. This person now will be someone extremely loving and sensitive, and for some time you may even feel like you need to walk on eggshells around them because they take everything that is not super romantic, loving, lovey-dovey and sugary, everything that is not that way, they're gonna take it way too personally. They'll be very irrational about that. On the other hand, there could be some intense sexual activity this month, but whatever happens, I really suggest to try to wait for this till after April the 15th. Chances are you will have a serious goal for this one and will want to take the relationship to your desired outcome, UttaraBhadrapada way, step by step, Okay. Let's go to Taurus. If your ascendant or moon sign is Taurus, April will bring new developments in your 11th house, which will include the lord of your 1st and 6th house, which is Venus. Saturn, who rules UttaraBhadrapada and is ruler of this new cycle, is in your 8th house at the moment. The major influence for you guys is still Venus retrograde because Venus rules you. As the 1st house ruler, when she goes retrograde, it is time to think about yourself and focus on yourself, your health, your approach to life in general. See if your approach to life and to your health and your thinking patterns now bring you the benefit the way they are now. Speaking about health, for any people with health issues, since Venus also rules your 6th house, it may be a time to do a blood test now, since retrograde Venus in UttaraBhadrapada can bring about imbalances in all those cells and indicators that compose your blood. Venus especially can have to do with sugar levels. So if you've been eating too much sugar or indulging in too much, alcohol or unhealthy foods, and you are suffering some health problems here, maybe this would be a good time to check your blood, to do the blood test. Now, also being in the 11th house, Venus retrograde probably has been bringing you additional gains during the prolonged stay in Pisces, but at the same time, since it rules your 1st house, you may feel a bit introvert and like you're going through your general direction in life in your mind, trying to see, are you still okay with the long-term goals you once had for yourself? This mental process may be a bit fuzzy at the beginning, but this new moon should bring new developments in this area, and maybe it's time to change something there. So you may decide during April to change some parts of your long-term goals and structures and decide to bring them in such kind of order that will bring you some kind of foundational security for future. If you're a part of a large network or organization, especially the one with a cause, because this is what the 11th house loves to do, to have a cause, this could be the time when you get involved in a new project there. And with this kind of new moon, it will probably be something of organizational or advisory kind. It is also possible to receive money from other people now or redefine your personal goals in order to bring necessary changes in your mutual resources with a partner or a business partner. Since Saturn is starting his long cycle in your 8th house of mutual resources and your partner's resources, you can expect some massive changes there in the next 3 years. If you're waiting for a new higher position at your workplace, this could be the month that happens. The same goes for a raise or any additional money. It should be easy to attract additional money now. Some Taurus people are in for a complete change of jobs, since Venus retrograde also rules your sixth house. The others who work in service industries will most probably be introducing new services in their offer during the month of April. You personally will feel very sensitive throughout April, especially in the first 2 weeks. You may be thinking that the way to get what you want to get is through charming and pleasing everyone around you, to saying yes to everyone's demands, so that then in return they would guess what you want and then give it to you. Well, if this is your philosophy now, you're risking to get yourself hurt. Try to find ways to calm yourself, to have your peace of mind other than depending on other people. This will be a huge theme for you guys in April. This is also the month where you could run into some old friends and acquaintances and decide to reestablish friendships with them. Just make sure it is something you really want, and that this is not coming from a place of not being able to say no, or that this is not coming from a place of your underlying agenda to gain something out of those connections. Since your sixth house also rules the so-called enemies. We are not, most of us are not in any kind of war in our lives. So when we say enemy in astrology, we mean everyone who presents any kind of obstacles towards what you want. And it can even be a very slow cashier who will be, you have to wait at the cash desk for, I don't know, 30 minutes, so this is an obstacle towards you arriving at work at the time, And in astrological terms, this kind of person and situation will be put in the sixth house and called an enemy. Now, this new moon conjunct Venus retrograde in your 11th house, which has to do with social networks, can bring some sneaky alliances here, where you make friends with the enemy in order to achieve a goal. Okay, just be aware of that. Okay, if your ascendant or moon sign is in Gemini, April will bring new developments in your 10th house, which will include the lord of your 5th and 12th house, which are ruled by Venus. Saturn, the ruler of UttaraBhadrapada and the ruler of this new cycle, is in your 7th house. So whatever happens in your 10th house will have to serve its purpose in your public life or official relationships represented by the 7th house. Apart from this, a major influence for you guys will be Mercury retrograde. Mercury is turning retrograde from the 10th April, and this is big because Mercury rules you. And then Saturn is turning retrograde on the 7th of April, and this is important because he's in Sagittarius now, and he's opposing you guys at the moment, especially if you have personal planets or points in the first 10 degrees of Vedic Gemini. I'm going to make separate videos on these influences. Let's go back to the new moon in your 10th house. The new moon in your 10th house is going to start a new cycle in the area of your highest responsibilities in this lives, because this is what the 10th house is. If you're on a career path, this will most likely have to do with your career, because we tend to perform our highest responsibilities in our career field. Now, if I combine UttaraBhadrapada career interests with Venus retrograde there, who rules your 5th and 12th house, what I see is that the careers mostly supported by this cycle will be anything that has to do with charitable work, non-profit organizations, foreign trade, import and export mainly, but with distant countries. Travel industry as well, especially to faraway exotic places. Religious work, astrology, mysticism of any kind, writing, teaching, counseling, and researching. Organizational positions in creative industries are also possible here. If you are in any of these fields, you can expect new developments in your career. Otherwise, it may just be a new boss, for example, most likely a female. This could also include dealing with publics, since Saturn rules this new moon from the 7th house. Or, for example, entering a partnership, or traveling for business, or setting a foundation of some sort in your chosen field. Saturn in your 7th house, if we go by derived houses, which are called in Indian astrology Bhavad 7th house is 10th from the 10th. And when Saturn enters your 7th house, it is going to trigger your career as well. So your career, if you are on a career path, is doubly triggered this month. What you need to pay attention to here is taking too much work upon yourself in order to maintain good relationships with your partners or co-workers. UttaraBhadrapada tends to do this. Be aware. Try to maintain high levels of awareness when it comes to your career this month. And when you catch yourself wanting to take extra work, ask yourself, why do I want to take this? And most likely the answer will be because I want them to like me. First of all, you have to have the guts to admit something like this to yourself. And then you have to have the courage to go against that, little voice which screws up with your mind and says that this is the way to being accepted. And this can be scary, going against yourself and something internal that conditions you that way. First, it can be scary to admit it to yourself because it crushes your ego like nothing, and then it can be scary to to go against it, because by doing that you will be entering into an unknown territory. But I always believe the best thing is to go against your fear, and it really makes you much stronger in the end. With Mars going through your 11th house, you may be so competitive and goal-oriented that you can lead yourself to a burnout here. The last thing you need now is to take on extra work because you want someone to like you. That's ridiculous. Don't do that. Do your part, but don't offer to do other people's work in order to be liked and accepted. You're not helping them, and you're not helping yourself, especially not in the long term. Okay, if your ascendant or moon sign is in Cancer, April will bring new developments in your 9th house, which will include Venus, who rules your 4th and 11th house. Saturn, who rules UttaraBhadrapada in this new cycle, is in your 6th house at the moment. So whatever happens will have to serve Saturn's purpose in the area of your everyday work, activities, services, health, and all those boring routine stuff that you have to do in order to maintain things that you want to have. The 9th house, where this new moon happens, is the house of your highest dharma. Generally, it is a lucky house. But since this is the house of your highest dharma, whatever you decide to do this month should be, quote unquote, the right thing to do. With Venus retrograde there, this could include redoing something where you believed you did something wrong, for example. Now, this new moon being conjunct Venus will affect you guys particularly because your 4th house, which is the natural house of Cancer and Moon, which is a very important house for Cancer moon and ascendant, being fourth from the fourth, um, is Libra and is ruled by Venus. This means that generally Cancer people really derive their peace of mind from how balanced and peaceful their relationships are. Now, new moon conjunct Venus reinforces this for the month of April because these are very similar energies. So in order to be at peace with yourself, you will have to do what you consider your duty is. That's what the ninth house is. What, again, quote unquote, the right thing to do is. And this can include so many things, from taking your mom, which is your fourth house, or your friends, which is your 11th house, to vacation, to giving a lecture on love and peace to your primary school class if you're a teacher, or traveling home to see your family that you haven't seen for a long time, for example. For those of you guys working in publishing or as lecturers, advisors, teachers, this could be a new cycle at work, asking you to establish some kind of solid network as a basis for further work, or present your work, or let's say a thesis that involved gathering information and systematizing them in an orderly structure that can provide a foundation for something to build upon it. If you are enrolled to postgraduate studies, this could be the time you pass some exams which you left behind a bit, especially if they have to do anything with economics or related subjects. It is also a good time to enroll a course you want, not just for postgraduate students, but anyone, any kind of course you want. Since the ninth house also rules legal issues, and sixth house, where your Saturn is, rules disputes, this could be a time when an old court case is revived, for example, if you have something like that. Or, for example, a current court case, if you have any, takes a new turn here. Apart from that, ninth house generally rules your life philosophy and how happy you feel about your life, together with Jupiter. So this month, your overall feeling of happiness may depend way too much on other people and how much love they give you, or how much money you have, or how much money you earn. This is not the proper use of the ninth house. Ninth house is the natural house of Jupiter, and Jupiter is happy just because. Jupiter doesn't need money or other people's love or approval to feel happy. Jupiter has faith and is happy because he's full of faith. And Moon plus Venus is happy if they're able to make feast, if they're able to maintain balance, if they receive love, if they receive money. All this is revolving around your family life and your friendships. So although falling in a very happy house and ruling very happy houses, if you depend way too much on that, this can be an unhappy month for you. Don't do that to yourself. Now, good news, if there are any late payments or money owed to you that you have already earned, April could be the time you get it. If this is not the case, you could start a new project with people you know from somewhere abroad too, for example. Mars is exceptionally strong in April. He's in Aries, in your 10th house, which is the house of your highest duties. And if you are employed, your highest duties generally have to do with your career. So this looks very promises. If, let's say, your dasha is supportive and you're a Cancer rising, now this may be the time when you even move to a different country due to new projects and sources of income. If your ascendant or moon sign is Leo, this new cycle happens in your 8th house and is conjunct Venus retrograde, who rules houses 3 and 10 for you. Saturn, the ruler of the nakshatra of this new moon, is in your 5th house. So whatever developments happen in the house of transformation, hidden knowledge, emotional and psychological screw-ups, things that we can't control, problem solving and so on will have to serve the purpose that Saturn has in the fifth house of love, romance, creativity, children, entertainment, studying, and so on. Now, when eighth house is triggered, things happen suddenly and unexpectedly because this is the house of our subconscious, and the subconscious energy is usually suppressed and therefore tends to manifest as sudden events. It is possible that during April there will be changes at your workplace, including changes in your responsibilities. Since Venus is retrograde, it is possible that this new cycle may involve old colleagues or even old bosses or project that you used to work on in the past. This is more likely to happen to those of you who have to do with charity, non-profit organization, and fundraising, because this is happening in the eighth house, which has to deal with other people's money. Other professions supported by the combination of nakshatra and stars at the moment are astrology, mysticism, counseling, psychology, or organizational jobs in creative industries. Anything that has to do with creative working environments and systems in large networks is also triggered now. If you're doing business with a partner, there could be changes in your mutual finances now. And emotionally, April could be an intense month, triggering the house of vulnerabilities and on our things that we emotionally fear losing. Since Venus also rules the house of courage for you guys, this may be a time period when you feel like your courage is lacking because she's retrograde, inverted. And you may be facing some of your old fears. Like, for example, the fear of public communications, because this fear is connected to public embarrassment. And for you guys, well, for anyone, eighth house, among other things, rules our fears. And Venus for you rules houses 3, which has to do with communications, and 10, which has to do with your public standing. Third house also rules short distance travel, so you may suddenly need to travel someplace you already visited before, and this could be work related. Generally, Leo people tend to have a lot of short distance travel related to their work. And since this is happening in the eighth house, and the ruler of the third house is retrograde, be careful on the roads. Make sure you're safe. Now, sexual scandals are also possible here, especially if you don't know how to say no when you mean it in April. Though you're a Leo, you should be able to stand your ground. UttaraBhadrapada nakshatra needs structure and order in emotional life, so make sure you get those in your emotional life now, but not by acquiescing too much. Since the eighth house can also be about manipulation, because if we have insights in our own subconscious patterns, we start to recognize the subconscious patterns in other people, and this gives you huge possibilities for manipulating them. With Venus being retrograde there, beware of tendencies to be passively manipulative, in a sense of being too agreeable, but in order to get something for yourself. Since the third house also rules hobbies and sports, with this new moon it is also possible to resurrect in the eighth house manner an old hobby or sport or some kind of pleasant pastime that you once used to have. Now, UttaraBhadrapada nakshatra is also connected to Kundalini energy, and eighth house is also connected to Kundalini energy. The third house, being the eighth from the eighth, is a strong house of sadhana. So for those of you who are in some sort of spiritual practice, this could be a time of sudden revelations. Eighth house is also the house of surgery, but since Venus is retrograde here, you may be propelled to take some plastic surgery or beauty surgery at this time. Don't do that while Venus is retrograde. No elective beauty surgery while Venus is retrograde. That's one of the basic rules, because you may not be happy with the results. From the 15th of April, Sun, which rules you guys, will be exalted in Aries, and this should be the period when you feel really good and fortunate. If your ascendant or moon sign is Virgo, this new cycle happens in your 7th house and is conjunct Venus retrograde, who rules houses 2 and 9 for you. Saturn, the ruler of the nakshatra of this new moon, is in the 4th house for you guys. So whatever developments happen in the house of partnerships will have to serve the purpose of Saturn agenda, who is now developing your foundations, both emotional and practical. Now, with the new moon conjunct Venus retrograde in the 7th house, this is a prime position for an ex to return if there is any unfinished business with them. With this new moon, you may be too agreeable and determined to keep peace in your relationships in April, and therefore avoid any possible conflict. Like keeping quiet and having faith will make things solve themselves. If there is no ex in the picture, the same thing applies to renegotiating the terms of committed relationships. And if this happens, the negotiations will serve to bring you emotional foundation because of that Saturn in the 4th house. A similar scenario is possible if you're doing business. There could be a renegotiation of an old contract or a new venture, including an old partner. And the negotiations could be happening in a foreign language. The month starts with your orientations towards other people because of this new moon in your 7th house. But in mid-April, there will be a full moon in Virgo, conjuncting Jupiter, throwing the spotlight back on you. Venus will be also turning direct around that time, taking your committed, by then hopefully renegotiated relationships in a more pleasant direction. But then Mercury, your ruling planet, will turn retrograde in your 9th house, which may mean you travel again or need to go through some legal documents again. And this will most likely be related to your career, because Mercury also rules the house of career for you guys. Travel is possible during the whole month of April, especially for business purposes. And make sure you don't lose money while you're traveling because of this Venus retrograde. If you have a coach who helps you grow in your profession, for example, it is possible that you guys will be going over an old topic for development now, or you may even change who coaches you. Now, all these recent happenings in your relationships department may lead to questioning your entire direction of life now, and you will be feeling more introverted after the 10th of April, and this will be a period with an opportunity for some nice inner growth because of this Mercury retrograde in your 9th house, and a very good time for meditation as well if you practice that. Okay, if your ascendant or moon sign is Libra, this new cycle happens in your 6th house and is conjunct Venus retrograde, who rules you guys, as well as your 8th house. Saturn, the ruler of the nakshatra of this new moon, is in your 3rd house, so whatever developments happen in the house of everyday maintenance for you guys will have to serve the purpose of Saturn's agenda in the house of your self-willed actions and interests. Now, to put it simply, it is the time now to put some effort into your health maintenance and everyday routines. With this kind of sky, it is possible that for those Libras who have some chronic health issues, they become acute now and you have to deal with them. This can also be the time maybe to start doing yoga again if you had a break, or go back to the gym. You guys had the whole March to contemplate over how you spend your days and whether you're handling everyday obligations smartly. And probably you have decided to introduce some changes into your everyday routine. April is the month to implement them. This new moon should give you an idea on how to do it, while the best time to see the first results and then add additional changes will be after the 15th of April, when your ruler turns direct. If there are any old court cases that you're involved in, this may be the time they reappear, and you witness a turn in events there. especially if these cases have to do with shared accounts or inheritances of some sort. For those of you who have pets, March may have brought some issues in their health or behavior, and April should be time when situation resolves. This new moon also triggers a possibility for conflicts, possibly around resources you share with another person. And with Venus retrograde so close to this new moon, you may be prone to avoiding these conflicts and feel extra sensitive around the issues that arise. New developments are also possible at your workplace or with people that work for you. They may be kind of passive and lacking motivation, withdrawing when they need to push, or swinging between action and withdrawal, which may not make sense to you now. If you're hiring, the new people that come now may seem very agreeable with a high level of servitude and like they will do anything, even other people's job. But on the other hand, they may be lacking initiative and they may turn out to be not so very productive once this Venus turns direct. You may see them in a different light. If your ascendant or moon sign is Scorpio, this new cycle happens in your 5th house and is conjunct Venus retrograde, who rules your 7th and 12th house. Saturn, the ruler of the nakshatra of this new moon, is in your 2nd house. So whatever developments happen in your house of love, romance, children, creative projects, stock markets, will have to serve the purpose of Saturn's agenda in the house of values, family, and wealth. Now, this is like a perfect position for an old lover to return. Then you guys jump into bed and make a baby from the first go. Something like this. And similar scenarios are possible with new lovers as well, since this is a very creative period for you and it involves your partners. And love topics are very strong this month, and your partner may be overly sensitive and agreeable in an attempt to renegotiate some kind of benefits for themselves, which they believe will give your relationship a solid foundation. It can also be one of those situations when you go through some troubles in your relationships and then get an idea that something like having a baby would give your relationship some solid foundation. Wait until after April the 15th if you are prone to such drastic measures. When it comes to business, it may be time to redo an old creative project, which would now yield slow but steady results. And there is a possibility to renegotiate a business deal with someone from abroad or travel abroad for business, probably somewhere you have already been to. Whatever renegotiating happens, you may have to go over it again, because as soon as Venus, who rules negotiations for you guys, turns direct, Mercury will turn retrograde in your 7th house, and the 7th house rules negotiations. So regardless of whether you're talking things over and reevaluating them with a business partner or a lover, it seems like most of April and a part of May will revolve around these topics. If you're into stock markets, be very careful about what you invest in now. With Venus retrograde in your 5th house, there may be some opportunities where value has dropped since the beginning of March, and it seems a perfect time to buy and resell later on. But then again, Venus retrograde in the investment house may bring losses with your investments. So if I were you, I would seriously consider it and consult someone very experienced about this, because your natal chart and the potentials of your natal chart will also have a great say here. If your ascendant or moon sign is Sagittarius, this new cycle happens in your 4th house and is conjunct Venus retrograde, who rules your 6th and 11th house. And Saturn, the ruler of the nakshatra of this new moon, is in your 1st house. So whatever developments happen at home or with your mother or pets or even workplace, will affect you and your direction in life directly. Now, fourth house, above all, is an emotional house. So the events of April will make you reevaluate the way you take care of yourself. It is time to start doing something that will make you happy and give you peace of mind. And most probably you have been reevaluating this during March. Like, what are the things that you do every day to make yourself happy? The small things like going for a walk or taking a longer bath or whatever. This is what the sixth house is about, everyday maintenance. Its ruler, Venus, is now retrograde in your fourth house. So in this case, we are talking about the small daily things that you do to make yourself happy and peaceful. Besides that, are your long-term goals making you happy, or is it time to change them? Are you pursuing things that make you feel good? Is your social life making you happy? Are you happy with your friends? This is what the 11th house is about. Long-term goals, gains, like-minded groups of people, and it is also ruled by this Venus retrograde transiting your fourth house. So in this case, we're talking about the big things that you do to make yourself happy and peaceful. For Sagittarius people, Venus rules both the house of everyday maintenance and your long-term goals, meaning they have the same approach to these things. Sagittarius should be able to see the big picture and then apply small steps to reach big goals. Maybe now is the time to first reevaluate if your big dreams are making you happy, change them if they're not, and then of course change the small everyday steps towards them. On a practical level, fourth house has to do with your house and car and boat and furniture and similar stuff. So Venus retrograde is not the best time to sell unless you're absolutely sure you're selling for the best price, and definitely it's not the best time to buy, since the things we buy during Venus retrograde tend to drop in value afterwards or turn out to need much more investment than you initially thought. This could also be the time of conflicts with your mother, family, older siblings, or friends, especially female friends, or the time where you avoid unnecessary conflict with these people because it makes you uncomfortable. The situation should get much clearer and easier to handle when Venus turns direct after the 15th of April. If your ascendant or moon sign is Capricorn, this new cycle happens in your third house and is conjunct Venus retrograde, who rules your fifth and 10th house. Saturn, the ruler of this nakshatra, is in your 12th house. So generally, I would describe this as a time you give your energy away by putting some effort into helping your children or by working some extra hours. A new moon in the third house can bring so many things. Generally, this particular one will trigger a personal desire, something that you want to do, an interest that requires your initiative and courage. And it may vary from a hobby or developing a new skill to sports or a short trip or an entrepreneurial endeavor. All these things fall into the third house domain. We are pretty much third house society nowadays. If it is a hobby, it should be a creative one. If it is a skill, it may be related to something that you have already learned before. If it is a trip, you may want to take your kids or a lover with you. If it is an entrepreneurial endeavor, it may have to do with your highest responsibilities, because this Venus retrograde also rules the 10th house for you guys. It can affect you this way, particularly if your profession has anything to do with sales, marketing, or communications. Now, the only thing is, Venus and Moon are agreeable planets, while the third house is the house where you need to compete. And the 12th house, where your Saturn is, has to do with endings and losses of energy. So You may agree to do things just to please your children, or your lover, or your boss or teammates. You may feel withdrawn and overwhelmed with all the effort you have to put there. You may feel like you're trying by people pleasing and in roundabout ways only to find those efforts going nowhere. On a lighter scale, this can be a time when you meet with some old friends, peers, or even bosses, just for good times, at some bar or something like that. Or, for example, you decide to redesign your website or even your personal social networks. Like, for example, if you have been off Facebook for a while, you may rejoin, or you rejoin a dating site, or you just go for a cup of coffee with an old lover and see where that goes, for example. Now, whatever that is that requires your effort and initiative this month, it may feel exhausting, but then things should start taking a lighter turn after the 15th of April. If your ascendant or moon sign is in Aquarius, this new cycle happens in your second house and is conjunct Venus retrograde, who rules your fourth and ninth house. Saturn, the ruler of the nakshatra of this new moon, is in your 11th house. So whatever new developments happen in the house of your values, money, and family will have to serve Saturn in your 11th house, who is now working on your long-term goals and large network circles. The second house rules what we value the most. And with this new moon, you will value things that provide a solid structure for your life. You will want to rebuild your foundation. If your long-term goals have started changing, which is very possible with Saturn doing his job in your 11th house, now is the time to reevaluate what you value the most. Since Venus rules your fourth house, you will tend to value the things that make you happy. Or to be more precise, the thinking pattern could sound something like this. The most valuable thing for me is feeling good. When I feel good, it brings foundation and structure to my life. First of all, with the Venus retrograde here during March, you are probably going over things that used to make you feel good and you used to value them, but they fail to give you that feeling anymore. If that is the case, it is time to change them. Now, Venus also rules your ninth house. So for Aquarius ascendant, what they believe in, which is the ninth house, and what they value, which is the second house, tends to mix. Here, the internal narrative could be something like this. The most valuable thing for me is what I believe in. When I have faith, it brings foundation and structure to my life. Venus retrograde here during March probably made you go over your beliefs and the connection between feeling lucky and feeling safe and secure. Maybe you had a feeling that you, quote unquote, simply have no luck in matters of family or money, and therefore you feel insecure. Now is the time to go over that once again. When Venus turns direct after the 15th of April, what you believe in and how happy you are will start giving you a sense of self-confidence and foundation. And now, on a more practical level, this may mean your mother comes to visit. Or if someone owes you money, you could get it back in April, especially if this is coming from abroad. Or this could be a time when you start learning a foreign language you used to learn some time ago, for example, and then you had a break, and now after several years, here we go, learning English again. Now, the noise that you heard at the end of my Aquarius session was my dog who wanted to play with me, and of course this happened while I was doing Aquarius because they are having this transit of Ketu at the moment, and Ketu is the karaka for a dog. I'm starting Pisces now, and guess what? She's preparing to fall asleep, which is perfectly in accordance with the symbolism of Pisces. I have noticed this, that when I do something related to astrology and I bring about the energies of a certain sign, things around me, including people around me, including my pets, including what happens on social networks, I don't know, the messages I get, the phone calls that I receive, the contents that I see on TV, everything has to do with the symbolism of Pisces. And okay, I've been talking for a minute now, and she's already snoring. So, hi Pisces! If your sun is in Pisces, happy birthday, dear Pisces! I wish you a truly great year. And this will apply to Sun in Pisces as well, since it triggers your Sun directly. And it will apply to people whose ascendant or moon sign is in Pisces. This new cycle happens in your first house, meaning it marks the beginning of your personal new year. Forget the new year that came on January the 1st. This is the time when you set your intentions for the next 12 months. This is the time to come up with new ideas and as well to work on your physical body, because the first house also rules your physical body. Your personal new moon is conjunct Venus retrograde, who rules your 3rd and 8th house, which makes it not the easiest planet for Pisces. But on the other hand, Venus is exalted in Pisces. And what exactly does that mean? It means the love and desire we normally feel for one person in our lives is now elevated towards unconditional love and directed towards everyone and everything equally. Those of you who will be most directly affected by this new moon are people who have personal placements in UttaraBhadrapada nakshatra. Saturn, the ruler of this nakshatra, is in your 10th house now. So whatever new ideas you have, whatever new steps you take, they may impact the part of world you generally have most impact on and towards whom you have serious responsibilities, which most often comes through our profession, right? Venus has been in your sign for a bit more than 2 months now, making it a great time for any beautification processes which take a long time. You know, like for example, all those facial or body treatments that require you to go to 5 or 10 or 20 sessions. And well, if you've been using this Venus energy in your sign, by May you should be as pretty as the goddess of beauty herself. Now, this new cycle that starts your personal year can make you popular. You will feel loving, caring, gentle, affectionate, and so on. You may. This is the energy that may make you just want to be pretty and build harmonious relationships and make friends and so on. This all sounds great, but the downside of this new moon is that your new beginnings may be very fragile and passive in a way. If they require your effort or standing up for yourself, or God forbid confrontation, you may feel very uncomfortable about that now and do anything in your power to avoid it. Well, not everything and anything, just the more passive and roundabout stuff. This new moon should make it very easy for you to be in the right place at the right time to attract money. That sounds great, but it may not feel easy internally. Since Venus rules your 3rd and your 8th house, this new moon should bring a change which is a true transformation, and it should be directed towards creating a foundation for yourself in accordance with the archetypes of UttaraBhadrapada. You may have been reevaluating your personal interests and hobbies, and maybe April is the time to start putting your efforts into something new here, or resurrect an old interests or hobby, or start practicing a sport you once did. In an entrepreneurial sense, it could be the time where you reevaluate situation and decide to bring changes to what you do, especially if you are in sales, marketing, or communications. UttaraBhadrapada is predisposed to take on social leadership positions, and with its ruler Saturn in your 10th house, this is a strong possibility now. But since this new moon is conjunct retrograde Venus, at the same time, these new responsibilities may make you feel overwhelmed or wanting to people please and offer to do other people's job just in order to get it done, when instead you should lead. Although this is your moon, you may feel like you depend too much on other people and that they're not being very supportive, like you have to do it yourself. And now, if you are aware of this, you can always consciously make different choices which will benefit you more in the long term. Don't get people around you used to your people pleasing and you getting their job done. In a practical way, this could also be the time when other people's money comes to you to help you form some sort of solid foundation. UttaraBhadrapada nakshatra is also a very spiritual place, and with houses 3 and 8, which are both spiritual houses, 8 can have to do with mystical energies and deep transformations, kundalini energy. The third house is the 8 from the 8, so it's a very strong house of sadhana. You could find yourself now recommitting to a spiritual practice you once had because of this Venus retrograde, or even starting a new one because the energies are inverted, and anything that will require you to go inwards, which is what most spiritual practices do require, will be strongly supported now. So that's all I wanted to share about this new moon. As I said at the beginning, April will be a very eventful month. Venus, Saturn, and Mercury are changing direction. Plus, we have a full moon in Virgo, which will be triggering Jupiter in Virgo. I'll try to do some shorter updates on these influences if I catch any time. And you are welcome to comment below on what you would like me to do, as well as how these influences play out in your lives. I would love to hear about that. It's a kind of feedback which helps me learn and perfect my knowledge and understanding. If you like this video, please click like, subscribe to my channel, and share this content. You can also follow the Stardust Astrology Facebook page, for which I'm putting the link below. Thank you for listening and have a great April. Bye bye.